We're on. Okay, the hour of 8:30 is upon us. I'd like to call the Property Committee meeting for July 8th, 2024 to order. Certification of open meeting laws required. Yes. We're good. Adopt, I got a 12 item agenda. Need a motion by Doc to adopt. Second by Renee. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? None. Motion carried. Okay, number 4 is, everybody got the minutes from the previous meeting? Any corrections, additions? If not, a motion to approve is needed. Motion by Rich.
Second.
Second by Doc. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? None. Motion carried. Next, we've got the public meeting, public statement to open for 15-minute block of time here. If you want to call in and make a statement on anything on the agenda, please call at 715-538-1894. We'll leave her open for 15 minutes, and in the meantime, we'll proceed with the agenda. We got number 5, Samuel's Group Venture Building Project. Anything, Kurt, you got for us, please?
Yeah, morning, everyone. Last month when we met, we talked about moving into design of the child care community space and then some changes in the renovation. So Becky and I had a preliminary meeting with Venture to just talk about the scope of what potentially may be in there. And then we also had them give us some prices on a breakdown between what their design fees would be for doing all of that. The investment of the design costs is significant. So we're gonna wait to have them start any real level of design until we find out about the grant potential that you may find out in August. However, some of the things that are coming up is really the design parameters are driven around enrollment and what that looks like in regards to operations. So I think Becky wants to spend some time talking with individuals about potential operations that are in there, which may lead us to what does the parameters look like of that design. So that sort of stuff I would anticipate would happen over the next couple of months until we find out about the grant dollars. And once we know where we sit with the grant dollars, then we can make some decisions about what the investment would be in regards to the redesign. Because what we're doing is we're potentially changing some of the space on the south end of the existing building to accommodate the child care piece in there. And we don't want to make the decision if the grant isn't there to support the dollars to pay for it. So we're still working on some things, preliminary pre-planning, but we're going to hold on starting in more design until we get more information on the costs. So,
Kurt, I have a question for you. That Becky's design that we looked at last week, it's pretty similar to the very first one that we, isn't it? So there's not a whole lot, other than the daycare,
The second floor changes a bit, the second floor. The first floor, there's some slight changes, not a lot on the first floor. Second is changed from what we had before, because we really are taking kind of that south, I'm gonna call it the south wing, and we're taking those spaces and moving them to the north. So there is some changes that are in there. So.
But nothing really
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
I was just thinking of the cost factor of.
Well, some of the things, just to kind of give you an idea of what design has to look at, because your building is not sprinkled over there, we have to start looking at egress for the child care, and when we can start having more external walls so that we could get the children to egress quicker, that helps with the design. So the garage that's there now is something we may want to consider utilizing the square footage. There's those sorts of decisions are driven by enrollment, and that's why we want to get some of that legwork done before we start to invest in doing some more design stuff. So there's a lot that's going to go into it. I don't know if that covers everything, Becky, or.
Yeah, basically, yes, I have some follow-up meetings that are happening with the school district to talk about the potential of childcare, and then other nonprofits to get input on the layout and the scope, and try to get a better idea of how many slots that we should really be considering. Yeah, so I think it makes sense to these conversations I'm having, I'm hoping to solidify more on who would be the potential partner that we'd work with, and then get their input on what they'd like to see in space, so that we would have that input before moving forward on a design.
On that grant, Becky, is that, do we hear the 1st of August, or is it the end of August?
End of August.
okay.
End of August. I do have a meeting, I believe, next week with Senator Baldwin's representative again, so I'll just see if that time, but as far as I know, at this point anyway, they had told me it'd be end of August.
All right. Does anybody have any questions for either one? Okay, we'll move on to the next one. Update that project, I think.
Well, the date for the final walkthrough, I talked about having that later in the year. If we want to just pencil in like October 21st, maybe we can work with Jeremy on that. And what I'll do is I'll actually have my project management team walk through with Jeremy. What comes out of that then would be a list of items that we want to have covered under that warranty coverage for the contractors that are here. And that would give us some time to then get it distributed to them and have them get that stuff cleaned up. So right now, if you just want to tentatively go October 21st, we'll confirm that with Jeremy. If it doesn't work for him, we'll get it in that time period
Yeah.
there, so.
And you're okay with, we said some of the members might want to walk.
Absolutely,
along.
yeah,
Okay.
we'll let you guys know the date, and
Yep.
that's about all I have for updates, so.
All right. Next up is renovations update.
Yeah, that
You
was
already
what we,
kinda
that was what we
covered that.
covered. Yep,
Yeah.
absolutely, yep.
Okay, and then we'll go to IT department. Mr. Robertson, do you want something in open session before we go to closed session? You want to go right to close?
Do you want to go to close during mine, or you want to wait until the end for that?
Whichever works out better for you. You tell
Oh,
me.
well, we'll do it as soon as I'm done with the open session stuff then.
Okay, sounds good.
We did have an incident that we're going to talk about in closed session, and it did cause us to put a lot of things on hold that were promised last month. So we got the data moved for the courthouse servers, but the sheriff's department servers haven't moved yet. Today's my staff's in for the first time in a month, so that's good. They're all here. So we'll be resuming. We've had a lot of things on hold, a lot of stuff in the new courthouse with the monitors and whatnot has been put on hold, so we should be resuming function. Printing, we got our first quarter of the new print services contract, and we are over $2,000 under what was budgeted for the first quarter. That's not as good a number as you hope, because I think a lot of people are still printing to their desktops and not to the under service printers. And the plan to fix that is we're gonna have everyone put their own numbers. They're gonna pay for toner. If they insist on having a desktop printer that isn't under a service contract, they're gonna pay for the toner for that out of their department budget, so that they can feel the pain and get rid of those things, because we don't want, those are 5 times more expensive to print to than these under service devices. So we wanna, it's either that or a chargeback system, and I just feel like IT can provide the toner, we'll go ahead and buy it, but somebody on their end is gonna be paying for that. Most departments, most of the larger departments have the big copiers and are using them. It's the smaller ones where they seem to want to have those desktop printers, and the ones that are more expensive to maintain. That's all I have for your open record.
Does anybody have any questions for him at this time? If not, we'll entertain a motion to go to closed session per Wisconsin statutes 19.851D. Okay, good, we're back. Okay. Next up, maintenance department. Jeremy?
Okay, so it's been a fairly uneventful month, which in my department is good. I've not been as busy as Tim has been running around. Same thing pretty much as last month. We still got some plumbing issues that we're working on in the jail, stuff that I'm keeping track of so that we can do that final walkthrough with Kurt, so we have all that stuff to go over. The amount of rain that we've gotten, while not as bad as some of the other communities around, we have started getting some sinkholes forming here. Some of them we've already had taken care of by the excavators before. There's a vinyl fence over by the jail that hides the generator. A good portion of that is sunk about 14 inches down, so you can actually see that part of the fence is, and it's where the LP tank is. So it was just never backfilled and compacted correctly, so it's all sunk around that LP tank, which has caused the fence to sink. I walked a few of these areas with Tad last week from Samuel's group, so we have the fence company, the excavators coming back, the HVAC company, which is what was responsible for that LP tank, so all that stuff is gonna get fixed. The retaining wall that we put on the north side of the building, I'm dealing with the company on that because they only did half of the work that they were contracted to do, so we haven't paid them anything yet, but also the work that they've already done is half of that is washed out from the rain, so they didn't completely grade the ground correctly for that as well. So just a lot of follow-up this month. I don't have anything we did tint the windows downstairs to have for those security guards, for the deputies at the front door. I only did the ones that face out to the courtyard, which is where the sun that was coming out. There's no discernible difference from the outside. There's nothing that makes it really stand out all that much. I do have prices coming in to get a few others on the request of the television studio to tint some of the ones out here so there's not so much bright light coming in through this because it affects the way the cameras work, as well as the ones back here, this entire wall of glass on the back, which also lets in quite a bit, which the TV studio and the law enforcement is asked to kind of inhibit the amount of view that can be seen into the building. That's not a project I'm looking at doing right now. It's just something trying to get some numbers to see what we're going to be looking at because it'll be a while before we do anything like that.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that, I don't know if that's totally necessary to put money into it, but if you get a price, see what the
That's all
price
I'm
is,
doing
yeah.
right now. It's just
Yeah.
informative right now,
Yeah.
just because I already know that the cost, there's 40 windows back there just for that wall. It's bad enough that we got to try to keep the glass clean, let alone trying to put some tint onto that stuff as well. Nothing else. The only other issue that we've been working on is a software issue that doesn't relate to the IT department, but it's something that you alluded to earlier. It's with the temperature issues. We've having some control issues with the chiller on this side of the building. It either runs completely nonstop or it just stops working altogether, and then the humidity in this building gets crazy high. So we have been working with Winona Heat and Vent on that. That's a warranty issue. There's no cost associated with that. But again, it's just another thing that we've been working on this past month. So. Lastly, we are working with the health department to do kind of a facelift in their department with a grant that they have. So it's no cost for the county. And then even the man hours that we'll be putting in, replacing some of the flooring, painting the walls, cabinets and stuff will get reimbursed back to the county when we're done with that. So.
Just out of curiosity, when they were building this building, putting it up, did they look into, a lot of the places that are being built now, you can't see in from the outside, but you can from the inside out of the windows? Was that a big cost difference? Was it looked at? I'm just kind of curious.
It's the windows here, they have a tint built into them, but they're not that mirrored tint like that. And that was never an option that we sat down with Samuels to go over on any of these windows here.
I see.
There's a mirrored finish that I put on the ones that are here now. The tint that I put outside now has a mirrored finish. That was more for UV reflection purposes, but the current location of dispatch, that's something that we did a while ago too.
Sure.
Just to limit the amount of people that could see into there at that particular time, but that wasn't an option that we were presented with when we sat down to go over this building.
I see. Thank you.
Jeremy, I got a question. How is the gray water? Is the pond sufficient, and is the runoff the way you'd like to see it, or do we have any issues?
The pond itself is overflown a little bit, and it's just kind of become more of a weed haven than anything else. But that was by design, is how it's drawn up. It's supposed to be native wild grasses that are growing in there. We have left, a while ago, you'll see there's an overflow sewer line in there.
Yeah.
And we left the netting over that just because of the fact that the pond's been filling up so much. I'm trying to lower the amount of sediment that's going down into the storm drains. So once that levels out, we'll pull that netting out, but we've had no major issues. I haven't even had too many, my concern was mosquitoes, considering that water hasn't gone anywhere in a while. The only thing we really have right now is birds that are just kind of bathing in there over and over again. But it's doing what it's supposed to do, but again, everything is draining in there. It's filled up beyond capacity once or twice, but again, we're not anywhere near some of these other communities with the amount of water that they've had.
That's a good year to test it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So does anybody else have any questions for Jeremy?
I have a quick question. You're talking about that pond, that drainage pond. you said there was native grasses that they plan, or are they planning to seed that, or has that already been seeded?
So some of it was just seeds that we put down, and I'm still waiting on Green Oasis to come back with some plugs that they're supposed to put onto the west side, which is, right now, it's just kind of a grass and weeds that are in there, but it's just supposed to be more native.
Yeah,
And I can't remember the difference between annuals or perennials, ones that come back every year, perennials.
perennials.
Of just wildflowers that are supposed to be in there. So again, we'll see what it looks like at the end of the season. For the most part, it'd probably be brown on a normal year, near the end of the year, but this year with the amount of rain, everything has stayed luscious and green, and we've been mowing a lot more than we normally do this time of year, so.
Yeah, thank you.
Does anybody else have anything? Anything else for us, Jeremy? Nothing?
Not at this time.
Thank you. Thank you. Tim, too. All right. Next up, we have, next month's meeting is going to be August 12th at 8:30. Everybody okay with that? That's a regular schedule. And does anybody have anything specific for the agenda they want on there? If, just talk to Paul. Usually Paul and I make it up, so if you guys come up with something, feel free to talk to Paul. And if there's nothing else on the agenda, we've accomplished everything on here, so I call this meeting adjourned.